Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Big surprise, we found out where a bunch of new Flash characters are coming into James Gunn's live-action DCU based on a couple of TV shows that he just confirmed. This is also based on some of the things that I talked to him about during my conversation a little while ago, too. But since then, way more actual details and actual castings have come out, so we'll break it all down. I know everybody's been wondering when we're going to see the new versions of The Flash show up in live action. Wally West, Barry Allen, Jay Garrick. There were actually a couple different Flashes that showed up in the background of the first Superman movie in Easter eggs on that metahuman wall inside the Hall of Justice, but those were just meant to be Easter eggs. Like, we're talking about people running around to make all the Flash puns possible on screen. Maybe this means it's time for me to restart the Flash Ring giveaway at some point. They still sell those online, so we could actually probably still use those for a new giveaway. Somebody get Grant Gustin on the phone. He was just saying a little while ago that he would do anything that James Gunn asked him to do. So why don't we bring him back for cameos or a live-action version of Jay Garrick, or even bring him back as an older version of Barry Allen? But there are actually two new live-action TV shows that we learned about. All this Flash stuff is just for one of them, and it's actually for something called DC Crime, which is a true crime show that'll actually use Daily Planet characters from the Superman movie to basically introduce a whole bunch of villains from the DC comics. The reason why we're talking about Flash characters so much, the new versions of the Flash, is because Season 1 will revolve around Flash villains. It sounds like there'll be a couple other villains, but the real big one will be Gorilla Grodd in live action. You can kind of see James Gunn's logic here too. He wanted to wait a little beat after the Flash movie with Ezra Miller came out to just let the Flash go fallow in live action before he slow rolled him back into the DCU as he rebooted everything. Eobard Thawne, Reverse Flash, waiting in the wings to come back too. One of the other big things during my talk with James Gunn was him hyping up the Salvation Planet, like he was really, really big on the Salvation Planet, so I wouldn't be surprised if this new Flash Grodd plot actually ties in with the Salvation Planet in some way in Man of Tomorrow, in the supposed spin-off movie that they're going to be doing on the Salvation Planet. I think Salvation Run from the comics might wind up being its own separate movie instead of, say, like another Suicide Squad sequel. But that's meant to be something completely different. We can talk about that more if they wind up confirming something like that. It just seems like there's going to be another movie of some kind, not a Superman movie, but another movie with a whole bunch of villains on the Salvation Planet.
As far as I'm concerned, Grodd can stay in this coma forever.
If you didn't watch Creature Commandos Season 1 when it originally came out, I did episode videos for that, so I'll link those below in the descriptions. But James Gunn introduced his DCU Grodd during that. But the way that he was introduced in that was an alternate timeline flash forward, which the TV show then walked back, like erased by the finale. So it was the same scene where they introduced all the new Batman, Wonder Woman, the new version of the Flash, Booster Gold, a ton of other big Justice League characters. So a lot of people were pointing out that that technically wasn't canon anymore because they walked back the twist at the end of the show, like they prevented that future from happening. But the new Superman spin-offs that James Gunn announced are meant to be more legit live-action HBO big shows, and it's part of a larger anthology episode plan to introduce more big villains from the comics to the live-action DCU so they can go on to other big movies, like another Flash movie in other big movies down the road. This video is more Flash specific because we're talking about him introducing major Flash villains to live action, but literally while I was making this video, they also confirmed another Booster Gold TV show, so I'll address that at the end of the video. There's just like a lot of stuff being announced right now because the Superman movie just came out. What James Gunn is doing with a lot of these other characters is similar to the way Smallville introduced all of them back in the day, which is no coincidence because the Superman movie has a lot of Smallville baked into it, both in the vibes and the tone, and literally in the form of Smallville cameos and Easter eggs. Grant Gustin's Flash TV show also used the same formula in the Arrowverse, but it also had the benefit of the other Arrowverse shows to do some of the legwork because there are so many different characters. Their budgets were always pretty small compared to like the big HBO DC shows they're doing now, so there were only so many characters they could introduce per season. But if you didn't see the news, what's going on with Gorilla Grodd in the DCU is he's supposed to debut on the Jimmy Olsen Superman TV show. It's going to be an HBO crime anthology show, like a crime drama theme, more like The Penguin, where Jimmy Olsen hosts an anthology show and investigates different DCU villains case by case. That was why you were seeing all the jokes about Darkseid in the DCU being introduced on the Jimmy Olsen show, because Darkseid in the comics was introduced in a Jimmy Olsen comic book back in the day.
Ready the Armada. We will use the old ways.
I can already picture it in the background. This is Jimmy Olsen here to talk to you about the anti-life equation, brought to you by Lord Tech and sponsored by Chacos. Everybody buy Chacos. That would be one of the all-time hat tricks James Gunn could pull. Like, oh, you thought it was just going to be some casual Jimmy Olsen video podcast show where he investigates DC villains. Nope, we're going to introduce Darkseid during it. But it does sound like the show will be kind of like a true crime video podcast, like America's Most Wanted or Unsolved Mysteries, and Jimmy Olsen just hosts it himself and investigates different DC villains, and that's how they uncover really major DC villains in live action that then go on to other big movies, like Gorilla Grodd would go on to like a new Flash movie in a couple years, and so on and so forth with the other big villains that they introduce. So it sounds like a lot of the other big Daily Planet characters will show up, like Superman will probably show up as Clark Kent at least a little bit, and then a little bit as Superman. Lois Lane also probably going to show up, Perry White, the other big Daily Planet characters. It sounds like it's going to be 8 episodes per season, just like Peacemaker, The Penguin, their other DC HBO shows like the Green Lantern HBO show is going to be 8 episodes. What we know right now about Gorilla Grodd inside the DCU, just based on Creature Commandos, is that he had been in league with Princess Rostovik with an upgraded version of his telepathic crown from the comics, like he was King Grodd already. But because that was meant to be a possible future that Cersei was showing them, which they stopped from coming to pass, they killed the princess at the end of the show, it means that never wound up happening. So they didn't really explain what Gorilla Grodd was doing in the present day of the DCU during that. It sounds like that's what they're going to deal with during this Superman spin-off TV show. And because they are doing so many Flash villains now on these TV shows, James Gunn didn't say anything about who's going to be the main Flash during the actual show. The Creature Commandos Flash Forward implies it might be an older Wally West, meaning Barry Allen would be a little bit older and Jay Garrick would be very old. But it is always possible that he starts with a center point of Barry Allen and it's a younger Wally West in the universe. There were just a lot of clues that made it seem like his eventual Justice League will feature Wally West as the Flash on that team, not Barry Allen, and it'll be more like the animated version of the Justice League team. There were actually a couple of Flash and Flash-related characters like tied directly to the Flash in that Hall of Justice mural of all the early metahumans that people have found out about on planet Earth. It was basically meant to show you the history of metahumans as far as the public knew about them. Didn't mean there were secret metahumans out there, like you don't see Vandal Savage on here, but these are mostly meant to be heroes that used to be metahumans at one point. Some of them are probably still alive, though.
Because we are also of the cloth.
Of the cloth?
The really big ones were Max Mercury in his Maxwell Crandall Quicksilver form, then Max Mercury also in his Whip Whirlwind form, and the Libby Lawrence Liberty Bell, who I think they might say is the mother of Jesse Quick in the DCU at some point. There are many, many characters up there. I've already done a full video breakdown of every single one. Some of them are super deep cuts, so I'll link it below in the description. It was actually a really cool way for him to do a lot of world building without hijacking the movie to just stop and explain every single little thing. Like, boom, just show him in a picture in the background, and it's canon. Based on what James Gunn has already said since the Superman movie came out, his timing for a lot of this is that he's waiting till after he casts the new Batman and the new Wonder Woman to cast the new main version of The Flash. And it sounds like that'll happen, like for Batman and Wonder Woman, in the next 2 years. So I wouldn't be surprised if you just see The Flash, or Flashes, multiple Flashes, in the background of movies and TV shows until then. Like, we'll see one of the Flashes in the background when they introduce Grodd on this Superman spin-off TV show. They didn't say when that is supposed to premiere, but right now it sounds like 2027 is the plan, because that's also sounds like when they're going to release the Booster Gold TV show, assuming that everything goes well through production. I know there are a ton of questions about what's still canon, what's not canon anymore. There are a couple of jokes that he actually told about Black Adam and Shazam not being canon anymore because of those post-credit scenes, like, not today, Black Adam, not today, Shazam, you're not coming anywhere near the DCU right now. As a lot of you have also been asking, the Booster Gold TV show might be where they bring Blue Beetle back from that movie. Zolo said that James Gunn was going to let him come back as Blue Beetle. It just sounds like he was going to be crossing over with Booster Gold when they introduced the character, and now we know. It sounds like it'll be 2027 for that show. They have not cast anyone for Booster Gold yet. I'll do more videos for the show when we get some more information about it. But if you remember way back in the day, they featured those characters on Smallville. So that's sort of my mental model for what the Booster Gold TV show is going to feel like right now until we get some new footage of this brand new version of the show. Super Deep Cut 2, that Booster Gold Blue Beetle episode of Smallville, was also meant to set up the Blue Beetle spin-off TV show that Jeff Johns was working on with the WB at the time, because it was still the WB. I think that maybe they had turned into the CW by then. Some of the test footage for that show leaked online. I think the reason why they ultimately did not do the show, why they canceled the show in development, is because it would have been too expensive with the level of special effects they were able to pull off for their budget at that time. But it does feel like old times talking about big Flash characters on TV. Everybody just post all your reactions in the comments below and let me know which other characters you want to see show up during this anthology crime drama show. There's so many major characters, it's just going to take a couple years for them to like slowly seed out all the real big ones that we haven't seen yet. The other really big thing that's happening next in the DCU is that live-action Lanterns TV show. We should get some footage for that either later this year or early next year at some point, so I'll do videos for that whenever we do start getting some more actual trailer footage. The other really big TV show they confirmed that James Gunn is doing, this sounds like it's going to be Elseworlds. I don't think it's going to be canon DCU, but it'll be a V for Vendetta TV show, obviously on HBO, way more hardcore, like TVM rated mature. Still very early days on that. When they do release some trailer footage, I will do more videos for it. But everyone click here for my full video with James Gunn. It was actually really cool. And click here to learn about what's going on with the Man of Tomorrow Superman 2 movie. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.